Greetings, gaming historians, and welcome to Lord of Lore, where we break down the lore and history of our favorite video games and fantasies. And today, we're returning to the world of Amalur to discuss one of the most fascinating races in its world, and that is the Dverga. Although not physically seen in the game of Reckoning, the Dverga are a race of crafty dwarves known for their expert seafaring and infamous trade. The impact of the Dverga can be seen in the game of Reckoning through in-game lore and the dangerous ruins of Gallow's End, but much of their history and culture is still unknown. Today, by exploring sources found in the wiki, in-game notes, and context from Project Copernicus content, we will learn more about the Dverga and their infamous relationship with the kingdoms of Amalur. Now, fair warning, there are spoilers ahead. Let's discuss. As most of my viewers know, most of the major races' history began during the emergence after the Deep Gloam. But unlike the other races like humans, Alfar, and gnomes, the Dverga have no mention in the early ages of Amalur. Their history begins in the early kingdoms alongside the Apatharni centaurs and the tribe of Cthulhu. Whereas the Alfar and gnomes faced hardship from the Oranos alliance of giants, the Tirgash orc raiders, and the savage Durek, the Dverga were able to rise to prominence due to their genius shipbuilding and naval expertise. Later, a group of humans known as the Corthians settled in the fertile lands of Adelia, where they formed the Corthian Republic and grew in prosperity and influence, establishing trade with neighboring peoples, most prominently through Dvergan naval routes. Over time, the Corthians' increasingly wealthy citizens spread throughout Amalur from the corners of the west and even to the edge of the Fortinmar wilderness, and they soon became greedy and decadent, slowly changing from a republic to a brutal empire. The smaller tribes of Amalur faced oppression under this empire, including slavery, and who aided the Corthians in their slave trade? None other than the Dverga themselves. During this time, with their wealth growing due to Corthian trade, the Dverga continued to settle numerous outposts and fortifications across the Northern Ocean, particularly the Frostbreak Sea. Of these settlements, the most famous were the numerous forts built upon Gallow's End, the most famous being Gravehall Keep. Here, the Dverga stored their treasures and planned to make it a major slave port. However, numerous misfortunes followed, the most prominent being an invasion of Niskaru, forcing the Dverga to abandon the island. Even worse for the Dverga, the oppressed tribes eventually rose up and overthrew the Corthian Empire in the Ragosh Rebellion, and with their main employers overthrown, the now widely hated Dverga secluded themselves from the rest of Amalur, keeping to themselves along the northern coast and the many islands of the sea. In the next era, known as the Middle Kingdoms, numerous smaller kingdoms grew in prominence like the Almain, the Colossi, the Krimble, and the Bosawin, a small kingdom whose priests worship the fire god Vrekor. With Gallow's End still abandoned and becoming a paradise for pirates and monsters, the Dverga focused on settling smaller outposts throughout the Frostbreak Sea, like Emberdeep and other areas. However, one famous port that they sought control over was the Varani-built fort of Olaghorn, but they were not the only ones that sought its key position in the sea. Varani, Dverga, Durek, and Jotun alike fought for this fort, repeatedly destroying and rebuilding these settlements surrounding the world-famous port. Despite these hardships, the Dverga rarely ventured into mainland Amalur, as the races still loathed them for their dealings with the Corthian Empire. After the Age of Arcana, little is known about the Dverga's dealings with the other kingdoms, but as more kingdoms began to seek power, particularly the Daklfar, political controversies abounded. Although this is mostly conjecture, the Dverga did not seem to suffer like the other kingdoms during the Age of Ruin, when the Daklfar lost Rathir, the Gnomes lost Edessa, and the Almain faced civil war under Jotun occupation. In fact, the Dverga would later ally themselves with the Jotun during the Age of Heroes, so it's possible that the Jotun might have even employed the Dverga to transfer Almain goods and slaves to their homeland during the Age of Ruin. Regardless of these theories, when the Colossi Empire drove out the dark forces and established the Age of Enlightenment, the Daklfar felt threatened by the Colossi's imperialism. After crippling the Colossi Empire by crashing many of their cities into the earth, the Daklfar allied themselves with other kingdoms that sought freedom and power, including the Krimble, the Jotun, and even the Dverga. This alliance would be known as the Amaranthine and opposed the forces of the Concordance, an alliance based on order. Whatever reason the Dverga had for joining them, it stands to reason that the seafaring dwarves would benefit greatly from once again allying themselves with potential trade allies, and the Amaranthine would greatly benefit from the Dverga navies and trade. However, what role the Dverga played during the Age of Heroes remains to be seen, as Project Copernicus was sadly cancelled. Thankfully, there are some recent events that hint Copernicus may make some form of return, a topic I will likely discuss in the coming future. Until then, the Dverga remain a dark but interesting mystery. And that about does it for today's video. Our knowledge of the Dverga may be limited, but we can see their impact both in the game and the lore. Perhaps in future content, the Dverga may be further explored. What of their history? What of their culture? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and be sure to drop a like and subscribe so my channel can grow. Feel free to comment what you would like to see next, new videos regularly. God bless!